Good morning, beautiful people around the world, and welcome to Obinwannem English News Update. My name is Ubu Promise, the news presenter. On our news update this morning, according to Vanguard, Naira stables at 1,535 Naira per dollar in parallel markets. The Naira yesterday was stable at 1,535 Naira per dollar in the parallel market. However, the Naira depreciated to 1,532.58 per dollar in the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market (NAFEM). Data from the FMDQ showed that the indicative exchange rate for NAFEM rose to 1,532.58 per dollar from 1,523.85 Naira per dollar on Monday, indicating 8.73 depreciation for the Naira. The volume of dollars traded in the market increased by 41% to $188.19 million from $133.46 million traded on Monday. Consequently, the margin between the parallel market and FM rates narrowed to 2.42 Naira per dollar from 11.15 per dollar on Monday. 400 billion oil production shortfall threatens 2024 budget. With Nigeria's oil production consistently failing to meet budget benchmarks and allotted OPEC quotas, the industry's regulators and operators have come under severe pressure to fix the hostile operating environment that has seen both investors and international contractors move away from the country. Against the backdrop of the OPEC oil production quota of 1.5 million barrels per day, the latest data from the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission (NUPRC) shows that the country has recorded over 3.011 million barrels production shortfall in the first 5 months of the year, amounting to over $264.97 million, about 400 billion naira revenue lose using an average Bonny Light price of $88 per barrel. Vanguard's finding also shows that the country's oil output has dropped to around 1.2 million barrels per day, down from a peak of 2.5 million barrels per day in the early 2000s. Industries experts say the circumstances leading to the output decline are still much within the system, adding that it might even worsen in the month ahead if nothing drastic is done to arrest the slide. And now moving to Punch. Court orders for feature of NIMASA funds diverted under Jonathan's government. The Federal High Court in Lagos on Tuesday ordered the final forfeiture of the sums of $16.5 million and 127 million naira fraudulently diverted from the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. According to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the funds were diverted during the administration of ex-President Goodluck Jonathan. Justice Kehinde Ogundare ordered the final forfeiture of the funds to the federal government following an application on Tuesday by the EFCC. Counsel for the EFCC, Suleiman told the judge that the funds were found to be proceeds of illegal activities. The EFCC, in its supporting affidavit, explained that the funds were diverted after Jonathan, through the then National Security Advisor, Sambo Dusaki, approved the release of 1.2 billion naira to NIMASA on November 4, 2023. According to the EFCC, the funds were meant for the implementation of the International Ship and Port Security Project. The EFCC said the funds were diverted into the bank account of one Uche Obilo, an ally of NIMASA's executive director, Captain Bala Agaba. Still on Punch, 19 Nigerian airports not viable. The managing director of the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, Olubunmi Kuku, has stated that only 3 out of 22 airports under its management are profitable and contribute largely to the growth of the aviation sector. Kuku, who was a guest on the channel's TV morning show on Tuesday, said today that 19 of the nation's airports under FAN were being subsidized as they do not get passenger traffic commensurate to their operational costs. She further said that the majority of the 22 airports managed by FAN required maintenance and upgrades in critical infrastructure like the terminal areas, the land side, as well as the air side. The revelation by the FAN MD tallies with findings by the Punch that only 4 out of over 30 airports in the country are economically viable, contributing 5.57 trillion naira to foreign trade in 51 months. The 4 airports, which include Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Murtala Mohammed Airport, Kano and Port Harcourt, contributed a sum of 529.68 billion naira in total exports and 5.05 trillion naira in imports between January 2020 and March 2024. These statistics indicate that most airports are not economically viable to support foreign trade despite plans by various state governments to commence construction of airports purportedly to attract trade. And now on Channels TV, EFCC witness tales called how funds were moved from CBN through Emefiele's wife. A business relationship manager with Zenith Bank PLC Ifeoma Obinwannem has told a Lagos High Court sitting in Ikeja how funds were moved from the Central Bank of Nigeria through Zenith Bank to some accounts linked to Mrs. Margaret Emefiele, wife of a former governor of the CBN, Godwin Emefiele. Obinwannem, who is the 5th prosecution witness, testified in the trial of Godwin Emefiele and his co-defendant Henry Omoele on charges of alleged abuse of office to the tune of $4.5 billion and $2.8 billion. Led in evidence by EFCC's prosecutor Rotimi Oyeribo, the witness told trial Judge Rahman Oshodi that she never had any dealings with the former CBN governor but testified that several transfers running into billions from Apex Bank were made into private companies linked to Mrs. Emefiele. The inflows were for services rendered by the companies for CBN. She listed the private companies that received the cash flow from CBN as Limelight Multi-Dimensional Services Limited, Comic Support Services Limited, Adswen Resources Solution Limited, and Mago Farm. A witness also testified that the 2 signatories to the account are one Mr. Stephen and Mrs. Patricia, but that all transfer instructions were authorized by Mrs. Emefiele. She said apart from Mrs. Emefiele, she also receives instructions from 2 other people, Mr. John Oga and one Mr. Ogbeyemi Oludumu, who works for Emefiele but is now late. Mrs. Margaret Emefiele, the ex-CBN governor's wife, is the direct beneficiary of the account. The company sent transfer instructions to my email and all transactions made in the account were confirmed by Mrs. Emefiele before they were processed, she stated. Moving to Sahara Reporters, WYSN declares support for nationwide protests by Nigerian university workers over unpaid salaries. The Workers and Youth Solidarity Network WYSN has declared support for the nationwide protest embarked upon by the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and Non-Academic Staff Association of Education and Associated Institutions on Tuesday. The university workers staged the protest to express their displeasure over their unpaid arrears. A statement signed by WYSN Secretary Comrade Lotum Moses on Tuesday said, "We support SANU and NASU and task the federal government to meet their demands as a matter of urgency. Equally, we demand proper funding of the education sector." Workers and Youth Solidarity Network extends solidarity with the Senior Staff Association of Nigeria Universities and Non-Academic Staff Association of Education and Associated Institutions. We support the demands of SANU and NASU. We call on the federal government to meet the demands of the unions so that industrial crisis can be averted. To us in WYSN, we believe that the federal government is guilty of stopping areas of workers who were forced to embark on a strike to demand improved working conditions and other demands. And with this, we've come to the end of our news this morning. A massive thanks for listening to Obinwannem News Hour. Please do ensure to follow Obinwannem Media platform to be updated anytime we come live. My name is still Obo Promise, Obinwannem News presenter from Akwa Ibom State. Thanks for listening and do have a lovely day. Bye-bye.